am here.
Andrew Franklin, are you here?
You're muted.
Mute, but I think you're here, or you're not. You're here. I see you. And Danielle Bailey is here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Nobody can hear you, Andy.
I'll second it. Can I do that?
So
Voice vote, all in favor. Andy, thumbs up if you approve the agenda.
I
Here.
think I saw his thumb.
It was
says-
like,
yeah, I don't think it says.
No, that's
you're
just his
muted.
hand being extended.
yeah, I don't know what you don't have, like, you don't look muted,
Yeah,
but
you're not muted.
Nobody can hear him, right?
No.
no.
Oh, I think he's putting his headset on.
Okay, well, as you can keep
You can
thumbs.
hear us, Andy, obviously.
Yes, okay, then we'll keep going with the thumbs up. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And Andy, is there a second? Still can't hear. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
we
Yay.
can.
Well,
Andy for
that's
the win.
interesting. Hey, okay.
And you have a
Yeah,
radio
yeah.
voice now. It's very nice.
Yeah, you look like a VJ, you do.
Thank you.
Be
I was
controversial now.
seeking a second for the consent agenda.
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor, voice vote, aye.
I
Okay, so moving on to 3A, which is new business. Lindsay or Allison, do you want to just go over this?
So this is our yearly request for short-term borrowing. As you can see, it's a bit more than we asked for last year. So this year we had a major increase in our special ed costs and our transportation costs. And so that dwindled down our cash flow quite a bit. And so that 5.5, just looking at the cash flow analysis and working with PMA and just forecasting where we are going to be in a year and just looking at the expenses and everything. The ask is for the 5.5. Originally had started at 6.2, and we just kind of dwindled it down based off of looking at, okay, the timing of everything and when we're going to get tax receipts and more information. And right now I'm in the midst of the audit. So that's done this week. And then we have to close our books by the middle of September. So I'll be able to give you the final numbers of where we landed with everything, just to be able to show the increase that we had with like what areas they were in, just so we can show how we're going to try to prepare for those next year. So it's just asking the board to approve for the short-term borrow.
I have one question, if I may.
What's up? Should we have a motion first, Andy?
Oh, sure. So I'll move.
Carla seconded, but she's muted.
Okay. My question is this: once we approve temporary borrowing, then at what point do you present us with an actual loan that we have to approve?
So what this is now you're just giving me permission to go out to bid, and then
Yeah.
I'll bring it after it closes. The funds would arrive October 4th, so it would be
Okay.
before then.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
Carla, do you have any?
Is the sped cost increase, is that because of number of students or just increased hires?
No, it's kind of a mix of a lot of different things, and it's just looking at the needs of students. We had quite a few students that we had an increase in tuition costs, and then also transportation for students to go to alternate placements. And then we hired some additional staff to support the caseload that SPED needed.
Transportation is pretty expensive.
And the tuition cost is about IEP placements, right?
Alternate placements, yes.
Great, thank you.
I don't have any questions. So is there, let's see, let's just do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. And let's move on to the extracurricular stipend for 23-24. I don't know if you, Andy and Carla, would you like them to kind of give a little presentation, or do you guys just want to ask questions?
We can give a little overview if you want.
Yeah, because this link here, I wasn't able to open it.
Oh, okay, then yes,
Let me see if I
definitely.
can, let me see if I can share.
You want me to share my screen? You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I'm fast.
All
Okay.
right, then we'll go through, yeah, just give us a rundown of what we're looking at. and-
Sure. So the top section is just to give just an overview of history of what we've paid out in co-curricular. So obviously in 2021 with the pandemic, it went down quite a bit, but there were still some that we had paid out at the time. There was an increase in the last year. We did offer a significantly more amount of clubs, and then the stipend amounts were a bit higher. So last year's was about 101. And then just looking at the projected expenses based off of the clubs that we had, and then also just factoring in, okay, if we add 5 more clubs, et cetera, that's where that 110 is coming from. So what we did is we looked at what was the stipend that was given for the last few years, and it really wasn't a consistent number. So like there were some advisors that had received 1,500 and some that had received 3,000. So we really wanted to mainstream it and just make it very transparent. If you run a club, this is how much you're paid, and this is like the expectation of how many times. So a club that runs once per week is for the entire year is 35 sessions. Athletics is about 23 because they're condensed within 3 months, and they meet 4 times a week versus the once a week. So that's where that 23 sessions is coming from. So I just did a comparison showing last year's was with the average stipend of 2,000. It was 57.14.
I was just gonna say, it wasn't an average, because they were so all over the place. We were very happy with our math vocabulary. We went with the mode.
Mode, I'm sorry.
So we
you're
went
right.
the one
We were
that showed up the most. So the majority of people were getting paid that. So that's what we went with.
And then so we did a 10% increase because we really wanted to factor in just the cost and that it felt reasonable but also sustainable. And so the proposed new amount for 23-24 is 2,200. And again, that's with the understanding that it's one time per week for the entire year. Part of the new, and then for athletics, it would go from 1,500 per coach for the season to 1,650. And because the reason that we did that is because they're like track, for example, could have 4 coaches. And so trying to divvy out one stipend between 4 people would have gotten messy. And so we are wanting to roll out this process where there's a checklist. Are you able to click on the checklist, Allison?
Yeah, I was just gonna quickly say, I know that like the per session thing feels kind of clunky, but the reason we needed to have a breakdown was because there are some clubs that might run for like 4 weeks every day. And then there are some clubs that are stretched out over the year, and then some that do a half year. So we felt like we needed to have some sort of a per session, but we didn't want to go deep in the weeds around things like, well, how much was their planning time, or how, like, some of those little extras. So we just were like, okay, so here's the per session, just in case somebody's meeting more than once a week or has a condensed club that's only like a trimester. Okay, sorry. Yep.
That's
And then
kind
some
of
of the
outlined
accountability.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Can you go back to it, Allison? Sorry.
Yep. So we wanted to have some accountability too for.
Yeah. So the proposal form, it just walks through like what is the club that you're looking to run, and then if you have more than one advisor, how is the percentage that you want that stipend to be. So because for example, if you have 2 advisors, is one doing 80%, is one doing 20%. So we want them to be able to determine that in the proposal right from the get-go. So if you go back to the other one, sorry.
Nope, you're good.
So here we gave more of a breakdown of, so for example, if you are meeting less than 1 time per week, that's where that 6285 that Allison was talking about, where it's like it goes down to per session, because there are some clubs that only meet once or twice a month. And so we wanted to be able to just show the breakdown. If you're meeting more than 1 time a week, it's just submitting a schedule so we know those dates, and then it would be the same thing where it's time per day, but capping it at that 4,400. And then this is where we made the note of, if there's more than 1 advisor, the stipend is 3,000. And then if it's, and that'll be divided amongst the advisors if it's less than a year. The other thing that I know we had this conversation with Ben and like with the board in the spring, was just the amount of time that a lot of our advisors dedicate on the weekend for different tournaments and things like that. So we wanted to really acknowledge that because we know it is a commitment. And so we wanted to add a $300 max for Saturday or weekend commitment. So essentially it's $100 a day for up to 3 additional days. So if they submit a proposal and they don't know, so for example, if you're running a club and then it's like, oh, we were able to get into a tournament, but you don't know that date until after, it would just be submitted to the building principal and to me just to make sure that okay, yep, we got those dates, we can pay those out. We're just really trying to streamline the process so that everybody knows exactly if you are going to commit to running a club, like the expectation is that you are agreeing to run it for the days that you're signing up for. And they also know this is the amount that you'll get paid for, but also, like not losing that this is something that's a great opportunity for students.
Then the $300 max is per club per year, per year. So for example, and I'll just give this as an example. So if Lalitha is doing Future Cities, she could get $100 for every weekend day for Future Cities. Then if she does Science Fair, she gets $100 for each weekend day. So it's not like Lolitha's capped at 300. It's just those 3 days per club. Cause we know like people, like she's a person that has multiple clubs, right? She's gonna have chess Saturdays and different clubs. So it wouldn't be 300 max for her. It would just be for each of the clubs.
Per club, not per employee.
And this would be Parkway and Glen Hills. So it would be consistent across the district. So if they do Parkway clubs this year, same thing.
And then the only other piece that, if you can scroll down a little bit more.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to look at this too or no? So this is just for
This is
people.
another piece where it's just the checklist just to ensure that they've submitted the proposal form, the building principals have signed off on it, that we're sharing it with the district office, just because then we know when we are giving them their contracts to sign, we know exactly how many days they're offering the club for. And then we also created a district calendar, so we all know when a club is happening and where it's happening, and then signing a contract, and then also any communication that are going out to families that has to get shared with the principal before it goes to Karen to post on social media. But it's just an opportunity to make sure that we are sharing communication and families are getting the information about when things are going to be offered. And it's all mainstream and it's the same place, so they know where to go to look for it. And then the last piece is the rosters being submitted so that we have that for state reporting. And then if you scroll down.
I don't think it goes anymore, Lindsay.
So the only other thing was just making sure we have it that it doesn't overlap with contracted time more than 15 minutes. Just because we with the way that times end for school, just making sure so that we're not double dipping and paying staff for contracted time when there's meetings that may happen for school while they're running that club. And the building principals ask for that, just so that it's clear and clean cut and they're able to still do their meetings and we can still make sure that we are having accessibility for students. And then we are working with Right Way to see if we can offer the busing again after some of the clubs.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say thank you. I think that's okay. Andy, we can start with you and then Carla, and then maybe I won't have any questions.
Could you put that back up?
Oh, sorry.
So, I mean, I did try looking at this. I mean, I have something that's labeled as a PDF, but take me to, some. I'm really not clear why, I couldn't view this. But what I'd been expecting to see, and now it comes up on my own. But what I'd been expecting to see was some kind of a list, that itemizes by club, what they were going to get. Frankly, it's a little bit hard to follow without kind of being able to, to eyeball it. But I mean, we're basically saying now that we're going to add on $300 a week for stipend. But
so the club is $2,200 for a year. That extra $100 is if they do a Saturday, for a max of $300 extra for Saturdays.
Okay, fine. But I mean, that could be, anything that would be $300 max per week, for however long that they're doing it. And I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I would
No,
like to
Andy,
see,
sorry, Andy, I think you're misunderstanding, so I want to make sure so we don't
Yeah.
launch into something. For every
Yeah.
club or every sport or session, an
Yeah.
advisor can earn up to $300 total for that entire year, session, season. $100 for every weekend day they do something, up to
up to
$300.
$300 for every weekend day
it'll
that they
be-
do something.
They could max out at 2,500 if they did a 1 time a week session.
So if Lolitha had a club with 4 Saturdays, the max she's gonna get for those Saturdays is 300. Plus her regular stipend.
Yeah, it's not really clear in the notes, and that's why, you know, we previously gone off of a spreadsheet that showed, you know, what a stipend is, per club per year. I understand that. I guess my
We
other,
could create a spreadsheet and put $2,200 next to everybody's name. I mean,
well,
that's essentially what we would do.
I think the intent of not having the spreadsheet quite yet is we want people to put the proposal form in, because if we go based off of all the clubs that ran, we don't know if necessarily people are committed to running that this year. So that's why we want everybody to kind of start fresh, fill out that proposal form. Once we have those proposal forms, we'll be able to generate the spreadsheet with all the clubs that are offering. Because like, for example, I think there was calligraphy club that was offered last year, and that's not going to be offered this year. So I can't just go based off of what clubs were offered last year.
So that's something we can get you. We just don't have it yet because, and the kids ask for clubs too. Like the
Mhm.
kids have an opportunity to ask for certain clubs, so we wouldn't know what those are gonna be
but
yet.
they're not all being paid the same thing, so.
No, but
you
they
know,
are gonna be all paid the same thing.
Okay, so this is what I'm having, a challenge with as I read this though, because it's really hard to follow on the sheet that we have.
So this is the sheet for you guys. This is not how necessarily we'll look for advisors, but the big points are it's $2,200 a year. Which is an
Yeah.
increase from $2,000
Yeah.
a year. And that we're adding that if you work on a Saturday, you get $100.
Okay, my other question is, where's the athletic director's salary in this?
That's a position, that's a totally separate stipend. It's not part of this.
Okay, and are we going to be, are there any changes on that? I mean, because we had a retiree last year who had been earning
Mhm.
something.
Yep.
As athletic director, is the position going to be paid something else?
It was a
Yeah.
reduction.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
but someone else is gonna be, all right.
Yeah, it
Well,
was a reduction.
I guess, my other follow-up on this is that we have these, these numbers. Are we going to later on see a final budget that we approve? Once we know exactly what clubs people are signing up for?
So she's
It would just be
projecting she's
line
gonna
item.
budget the 110. Because people could add clubs throughout the year, so she's budgeting the 110.8
Yeah.
as a max. That's her projection.
So we'll see it when the budget's presented to us.
Yeah,
And
it'll
we
be a
could give
line
you-
item. Yeah.
After the initial sign up, we could give you we could say, here's where we are right now. But it's just
Okay.
with the knowledge that a club could be added at some point during the year, which would add to it, but we could give you that initial when everybody signs up.
Okay,
And I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, Andy, I could look back, but I think that the athletic director stuff was probably part of updates. Because we did a whole interview process and I think we talked about the new salary. I think, I can look though.
I don't remember, but in years past, the athletic director was kind of listed on an Excel spreadsheet along with the other clubs. And so, and because the athletic director theoretically had authority over those other clubs and
Mhm.
extracurriculars, so.
Yep, we
Yeah,
just did it as like a position, a stipend position, yeah.
Carla, actually, can I skip you? I think I have questions that speak just that are good follow-ups from Andy's, I think. Let me just,
Not a permanent skip though, right?
what'd you say?
You'll come back to me. It's not a perma skip.
Yes, I will
Okay.
come back to you. This is not, I'm not gaslighting you. I'll come back to you.
yeah,
So I actually would love to see a list of clubs when it shapes up, but my general comments on like the proposal form and the lead checklist is like, I had questions like, well, by what date do people need to submit their proposals? And to whom, like, for a little bit more specificity, like, obviously not for us necessarily, but so that the process is like, because it just says in the checklist, right, like, submit this. So can they just submit it at any time? Is there a timeline for it to be approved, and thus we would be able to communicate
So
with families in time?
So the building principals go over it in their building meeting, just to let them know, because all clubs have to be approved by the building principal. So they walk through that process, and then we can have clubs running throughout the year at any time. So if somebody in November says, hey, I want to run a theater club. So there's not a hard fast deadline, but I think for like a year-round club, for example, we would be able to say, okay, if you want to, like I did it based off the middle of September to count out the 35 days. But that's why that per session is helpful, because if somebody waits until November and they want to run a club for 3 months, they might not submit that proposal until October.
Okay, I would love to see a copy of the extracurricular contract, just because I'm
Sure.
curious. And then,
Me too, by the way.
okay,
I'll
and
put that,
I-
I'll put it in the update.
perfect. Is there a difference between an advisor and an assistant and a co-advisor?
It kind of depends on the people running the club, which is why we're saying to them, okay, you get this 3,000, split it up. So like if they're gonna equally share everything and both be at every meeting, they would probably split it down the middle. But if there's a situation where maybe they're planning together, but somebody's not making every single, like they just kind of have to divide that up. So it could be equal, or it could be, it's just how they divide up the duties.
Okay, so then my suggestion would be to use uniform language, like
Okay.
advisor, co-advisor, because that just confused me. I mean, it's a simple switch.
No, where did you see it, Danielle? So we can make sure we
In
fix it.
the proposal form. It asks for the name of the advisor and then assistant.
Oh, thank you. Yep.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then will the athletic director, who's responsible for tracking the demographics of the rosters submitted, and who's responsible for confirming like clubs met the amount of times they said they did? Or they
so
will.
that's sort of the piece and the expectations and the checklist is submitting those rosters, because those rosters are submitted through IC, and then the goal is to actually be able to have those go through EduClimber as well. So we'll be able to track that in EduClimber too. But the
Who will though?
What was that?
Who will be tracking that?
So that's that part of the expectation for them to get their payment for their contract. And that's in that checklist, is that they have to have all those checks. And so being able to show before you get your payment at the end of your club is that you've submitted your roster, you submitted everything.
I get that the rosters have to be submitted to the district office, but to whom in the district office? And then who's entering the information into EduClimber? Like who's going to be checking that? Is that part of the athletic director's position? Is that part of your job? Is that part of?
No, that's part of April and Taylor. Taylor would do EduClimber, and then April would do the Infinite Campus piece.
So we're
Taylor.
gonna pay them, I'm sorry, we're gonna pay them extra, but we're gonna trust that they did what they said and not confirm it.
Can you clarify what you're saying?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Okay, so Taylor and April are entering information, so it'll be there in EduClimber when anybody wants to pull it.
Yep.
Okay, and rosters is that a template they use? Will they have demographic information on it, or?
What they do is when a student signs up for a club, they'll give us a list, and that's that roster that gets entered into IC. So they have to be able to tell us, and they're taking attendance to show that the students were there.
I got you. Sorry, I got that. Okay. Let me see if I had, sorry. Then my only other question is, when you guys put this together, like, did you walk through the equity lens, and could you give me like a little glimpse of sort of like one of the main pieces of the equity lens obviously would be, have we intentionally involved the people who are impacted by this? So, but I'm just curious if you can, like, did somebody walk through that? Does it meet our, equity lens questions?
I would say like one of the things we wanted to make sure that it was available to all students. So that was the piece with the transportation, because we didn't want students to not be able to participate, and that it was an opportunity available for everyone and they could still participate even if they didn't have like transportation shouldn't be a barrier. So I would say in that lens, we did.
I was gonna say the other biggest piece, I think, is just student choice, which is part of the reason we can't give you a full list of clubs right now, because we want to give the kids the opportunity to talk about clubs that they want to run or that they want to see. So that's part of that piece too. As far, I like you just talking students or staff. As far as staff, it's just the transparency, right? And just making, because this is another system where people were getting paid lots of different things and it wasn't necessarily fair.
So did you talk to any teachers or the teacher reps, or like who did we consult about the pay and the new way of doing it?
Yeah, so the irony is that our athletic director is Gus and he's also the association person. So there's just automatic overlap there that he's part of those conversations. And then the other one is Jen Clark. So we get lots of feedback from Jen because she's a huge green team person. So yeah.
So Jen Clark and Gus Kaufman give this thumbs up. Okay.
And building principles.
And building principles. Okay. Okay, Carla. Thank you.
Can we stop sharing the screen so I can see your
Oh.
huge faces again?
I'm sorry. You don't want to stay in an agenda?
It's disorienting for me. I just want to see all your eyeballs. Right, so I just want you to, I don't know how you're distributing this information to teachers, but looking at this that you provided, I did not know you were saying $2,200 stipend. I thought you were saying, for instance, $62.85 per session. Because like, for instance, if I look at chess club, it starts meeting after cross country. So it starts in early October and runs through April. That's not going to be 35 sessions. So does the chess club advisor get 2,200, or do they get the number of sessions times 62.85?
No, that's kind of like behind the scenes for you guys to know where we're basing that 2,200 off of. We're just basing it off of once a week for the full year. For staff, it'll just be, here's the amount per session.
Oh, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so that's where I think confusing, right? So I looked at this and I thought, okay, so $2,200 if you meet 35 times a week.
Right.
If you meet less, 2,200 minus 62.85 per session, less than 35.
That's what I thought too.
So you're saying
wash out the same way.
And you cap it at 4,400 if they meet more. So it moves if they meet more, but it doesn't move if they meet less.
So if they're meeting less than the 35 times, that's when you would say, okay, if you're only meeting 15 times, you would do the 15 times the $60 amount.
Well, that's different.
So
than
it is, it's essentially what you're saying, Carla. You guys just tell us what you think is clearer way to share it, because it's
well,
going to
here's the problem. If you're going to say at Parkway, if you're going to meet for a trimester, that's 8 meetings, so you're going to get 8 times 62.85, right? So, but if you're going to meet all year long, no matter what the number of sessions is, it's 2,200. But what if you only meet 27 times? Like, where's the cutoff for where you're going to count it per meeting versus it's for the full year? You know, that's the problem. Because I don't know where that, it feels arbitrary. This has always been my problem with going through an hourly calculation and using that, right?
So Lindsay, didn't you do mid-September till the end of the year, and that was 35 weeks? So that's
where the 35 is coming from.
Why aren't we just using an hourly?
I mean, not an hourly, but a per meeting, right?
Per session, yeah.
Per session, yeah. So that's it's just my question mark, right? So if you have a club that meets every other week, you're going to count it per session. But if you have a club that meets every week, starting in early October, like chess, and ending in April, they're going to come in maybe, I just looked at my calendar, maybe 7 or 8 short, depending on snow days and other activities. Does that advisor get the 2,200, or are you going to move to a per session model? You know, it's just
per session. Like it would still be per session because of that 2,200, it's just 35 sessions. That's like the baseline. So if you're above that, that's that 4,400, and then anything below the 35 would be the per session. Because
So-
otherwise,
So in other words,
go
the
ahead.
2,200 isn't really a 2,200.
Yeah, take it
Unless
out.
you meet
Don't talk-
exactly.
what I'm saying.
35
It's-
times.
That's what I was saying. It's more behind the scenes for us to know, okay, the 2,200 is based on once a year. But you're right. I don't think that needs to necessarily be communicated out. That was just our, like, how we got to that per session price cost.
Okay, so each advisor is gonna have a contract based on the number of times they meet. And it's
The
gonna
number
be
of times they say they're going to meet.
right.
I know, we had that conversation too, but we have to have some professional trust. I mean,
So it's
Gus
gonna
is gonna
be-
keep track as best as he can.
Well,
Yeah.
at the end of the session, shouldn't they submit like an end report? You know, it's like, these are the dates the club met. This was our attendance, like a summary report should be created, or they should be submitting it at the end to show. And that way we'll be able to track clubs that go from like 40 to 20. We'll be able to see which students dropped off, right? Maybe like we'll kind of
Yeah,
we'll have more data about who's involved and what the barriers or what.
yeah.
So.
Right,
it's not-
so
That's not
Yeah, I
a
like
trust
that.
thing. That's just straight up.
But I
like-
mean, we still have to trust them if they say, I did 60, I did 30
Yes,
sessions or whatever.
but they have
I
to
like
say it. But I
Mhm.
think you should have to
Mhm.
say it.
Yep, I like that a lot.
So basically, it's 62.85 per session. You're
Yeah.
gonna get a
Mhm.
contract. That's the amount you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you
you're-
unless you have co-advisors, and then it goes up to 82
80,
something
right.
that is split.
Mhm.
how
And then
they
the
want
coaches get 16.50 per
per
season.
season.
Yeah, so the athletics, we did a little bit differently just because they're meeting 4 times a week.
Right.
And so we
you're
just
not
did
gonna give
per
them a-
coach.
And you're not giving them a per session for some reason. You're giving them a fixed rate
Yeah.
for this season.
Oh, sorry. You want me to?
Question.
Yeah.
If I know there are multiple like coaches, right? So they're not, they don't have that same, if there are co-coaches, the price changes.
No,
Yeah.
because if there's multiple coaches, it's usually like, there's a 7th grade basketball coach, there's an 8th grade basketball coach, there's a 6th grade, so they're all
So
doing
each
their own
coach,
thing.
each season, 16.
Yeah.
And then,
I like
all
this
right,
stuff.
so this makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
Now I can be very clear, 62.85 per session. You're gonna get an individual contract based on how many times you think you're gonna meet. So,
So that's why that schedule is really important so that we can say, okay, this is the schedule you're providing, that you're meeting this amount of days based off of this, taking it times 62.85, and then that's where we're building their contract. So they'll get that.
and then you avoid the snafus with the partial trimester clubs and stuff out of Parkway. Okay.
Danielle, I really like that. We'll add a summary report at the end, because I think even just
Yeah.
seeing the beginning kid roster and the end one would be super interesting.
Well, and it will help the principals, because if it's up to the principal's discretion to approve the club, then it's like, okay, so, you know, this club was successful, or for some
Yeah.
reason this one wasn't, or, you know, maybe it can help them tweak to make the
Mhm.
clubs more inclusive or meet more off, I don't know. So,
No, I think
That's
it's a
why we
great
put in
idea.
there to submit a updated roster 4 times throughout the year for year-round clubs, so that we can make sure we're capturing, oh, like this student is no longer attending and it's happening multiple times throughout the
yeah,
year.
yeah, that is good information.
I want to go back to Danielle's question about demographics, because that's something we've all kind of circled around. And I would like to find a way to be sure that the board is getting reports, you know, that we're getting information on demographics and participation, right?
We
Rather than
did,
it being sort of ad hoc, like April comes around and one of us is like, hey, how are our clubs doing? How are the
it was,
demographics?
yeah, it was in a board update.
Yeah.
So maybe we add like an athletic director check-in or report to the board calendar when at a time that makes sense. Because the athletic director is overseeing co-curriculars, right?
Yeah,
At Parkway too?
So just if
Yep.
there's just like a regular check-in, and it can be brief, it doesn't have to be like, it's not like you're coming to get grilled, but it's like, how are things going? What is participation looking like?
Yeah,
You know,
just
what
to
are
give us
the
some
things? How can we
insight.
support you?
And so if there are any challenges or
Mhm.
gaps that kind of throw themselves at us. It's, just opportunity and information to raise those question marks and think it through.
Also, like, I would love to go see games, and I know it's on the district calendar and stuff, but it'd be a good time for probably celebrations of athletics and co-curriculars too, like we could work it into.
And I like the way you want to budget it. Just a flat line item in the budget works for me. So thanks for helping me get clear in my mind how you're
Yeah.
pricing this out. I think that's clear and fair for teachers, and there it is.
Oh,
And I
And
think
you have this in a board, I can't find the exact update. It was probably in the last, I don't know, month or so. But you guys have all these links so that you can take a look at last year's demographic data.
Oh, awesome.
where
So
is
I
that?
can't remember which update it was in, but
Okay. Oh, I remember that. It was numbers, right?
yeah.
Was it demographics?
It had it by gender, by demographic, as well as the grade level.
There were
So,
a whole
like,
bunch of tabs.
Here's the
that's right.
club, here's the gender, here's the ethnicity, here's
Okay.
chess club. Game, so we could put it in the next update again, since we're gonna do the
What's game?
contract in there.
Sorry, Allison.
Hmm?
We all have summer brain and summer memories.
No, it's totally
Short.
fine. So we'll put the advisor or the extracurricular contract, and then we'll put the demographics in there again.
Okay.
Since it's fresh and we're thinking about it.
Okay, perfect. I want to be mindful of time because Andy, I know you have some commitment. So any other discussion around this stipend that?
We'll create a communication too that's cleaned up and simple and put that in there too. So you can see what
Yeah.
it'll look like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Okay, then let's
Thank you for
let's see,
clearing
we
all
have
that.
a motion on the floor. Let's call a vote. All in favor, voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
I saw
I,
Carlos.
oh my, I,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you for working that out with us.
Thanks, Andy, for making it so that we could do these
Yeah,
two
thank
things.
you.
Thanks. I'll move to adjourn then.
Second. All in favor, voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
Thank
see
you,
you
everybody.
next time, Randy.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Gotta get going.